The monster in the mist. The jungle was full of mist, thick, silent, cold. Callan Voss, a lone human explorer, moved slowly through the wet vines and strange glowing trees. His boots sank into the soft ground, and every step made a quiet squish. He had crashed on this alien planet only 3 days ago. His ship was broken, his radio was dead, and the forest, it felt alive, like it was watching him. In the trees above, unseen eyes followed his movements. One of them belonged to Ilyana, a young alien girl with bright green skin and silver eyes. She was from the Vailari, a proud and ancient race. She crouched in the high branches, hidden behind purple leaves, her breath soft. She was not allowed to be here. The valley was sacred, forbidden. But she had seen the skyfire when his ship fell, and she had followed him from a distance ever since. Callan reached a narrow path between 2 large stone pillars. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the surface. He wiped sweat from his brow. Something about this place felt wrong. Old, waiting. Ilyana's eyes widened as she realized where he had gone. No, not there, she whispered. This was the inner circle of the valley, the place where their guardian lived. Morag, the monster, the protector, the untouchable one. Even her people, the Vailari elders, stayed away. No one had walked this deep in over 100 years. Callan stepped forward. A low growl rolled through the trees. He froze. The ground trembled. Birds flew out of the trees. Leaves shook. The mist thickened. And then, out of the fog, it came. Morag was massive, almost 5 meters tall. Thick black armor plates covered its body like stone. Long arms dragged the ground. Its eyes were bright orange, glowing like fire. Its mouth was wide, with rows of jagged teeth. It stepped out of the fog with a slow, heavy breath and roared. Ilyana gasped. She had seen Morag from a distance before, but never this close, and never when it was this angry. She wanted to run, but she couldn't look away. Callan didn't move. His hands were raised slightly, but he didn't pull a weapon. He didn't run. He just stood there, staring at the creature with calm eyes. Morag growled again, then stepped closer, one heavy foot at a time. The ground shook. Its breath was hot and loud. It lowered its huge head until it was just a few inches from Callan's chest. Saliva dripped from its jaws. Then it stopped and sniffed. Once, twice, 3 times. Callan remained still. His heart was racing, but he didn't move an inch. Suddenly, Morag pulled back. It made a deep rumbling sound from its chest, and then it did something Ilyana had never seen. Out, a low, slow, respectful motion. The monster was kneeling. Ilyana's mouth dropped open. She almost fell from the tree. Her heart pounded in her chest. She whispered, Did you just tame our guardian human? Callan blinked. He had no idea what just happened. He looked around, confused. The massive creature stepped back once, gave one more deep growl, and walked away into the mist. Ilyana jumped down from the tree. She landed softly on her feet behind him. Callan turned quickly, surprised. They stared at each other. For a long, silent moment. She was the first Vailari he had seen. He expected anger, fear, maybe even violence. But instead she said, You are not supposed to be here. I didn't. No, he said. No one walks in the mist. No one survives Morag. He looked toward the trees. I didn't do anything. You didn't run, she said. He nodded. Why would I? He didn't look like he wanted to kill me. He kills anyone who enters, she said slowly. Then maybe I'm not just anyone. Ilyana stepped back. Something about him was strange, not dangerous, not powerful, but calm, too calm. She looked at the ground, then back at him. You need to leave, before the elders find out. Who are you? Ilyana, she said. I'm Callan. She looked away. Callan. I think you just changed something ancient. The mist moved behind them. The forest felt different now, lighter, less angry, and somewhere deep in the valley, Morik watched and waited. The girl who watched. Ileana should have gone home. The law was clear. No one must speak to outsiders, and no one must go near Morik. But her feet didn't listen. Her thoughts didn't either. She had seen the impossible, and now she couldn't stop thinking about it. The guardian bowed to a human, to someone without Vailari blood. It had never happened before, not even to the elders, not even to her mother who once walked the sacred path and returned with scars. But Callan? He had walked straight into Morik's fog and walked out untouched. Now Ileana followed him from a distance. She kept to the trees, stepping light on the branches like only a true Vailari could. Callan was strange, not just because of his flat face, or the way he mumbled to himself while cooking something that smelled like burnt fungus. It was the way he moved, slow, careful, but never afraid. He talked to the plants when he passed them. He picked up small animals from danger and placed them back in safety. And when he found a broken tree, he didn't curse. He fixed it with ropes and sticks and patience. Ileana narrowed her eyes. What kind of human does that? She whispered. She had seen humans before, far away through the sky lenses. Loud ones, angry ones, traitors and soldiers, but not like this one. That night, Callan built a small fire under the stone ridge near the river. He sat with a notebook on his knee and a strange round object beside him. It glowed softly. He touched it, and it showed a moving picture, a map of stars. He stared at it with quiet eyes. Sad eyes. Ileana stayed hidden in the shadows, watching. Her curiosity pulled her forward, until her foot cracked a small branch. Snap. Callan stood quickly. Who's there? No answer. He grabbed a nearby stick. Half a tool, half a weapon. Ileana stepped out slowly from the dark. He lowered the stick the moment he saw her. You again, he said, surprised but not angry. I didn't follow you. She lied. I didn't say you did. He smiled. Silence. The fire crackled softly. Ileana looked at him carefully, then asked, What did you do to Morik? I didn't do anything, he said. He just didn't kill me. That doesn't happen. Well, Callan shrugged. Maybe he changed. Guardians do not change. Maybe they remember. Ileana blinked. What? Callan pointed up. To the stars. My people say all old things forget eventually, but sometimes they remember kindness. She stared at him. That's not how we think. Maybe it should be. She didn't know how to respond, so she sat on a rock near the fire. Not close, not far. Just there. Do you live here now? She asked. Only because I can't leave yet. My ship's broken. I could show you where the old tech cave is. She offered quickly, then paused. Why did she say that? She wasn't supposed to help. He nodded. Thanks. Maybe later. More silence. But this time, it wasn't cold. She watched the way he looked at the flames. He didn't stare like a fool. He studied them, like the fire was teaching him something. Why don't you ask me about my people? She said suddenly. I figure you'll tell me if you want to. You don't want to know? I want to know what you care about, not just where you're from. That stopped her breath. No one had ever said something like that. Not even her own kind. She stood up quickly. I need to go. Okay, but she didn't move. Why are you so calm? Would panic help? She frowned. You're strange. He smiled. Takes one to know one. She turned and ran into the trees, but not far, just enough, so she could still see the firelight between the leaves. From there, she whispered to herself, "He doesn't act like an enemy." And Morak? Morak bowed to him. "Why?" She placed her hand over her chest. Her heart was beating too fast, not from fear, from change. And far above, in the mountains, Morak stood under the moonlight, watching, waiting, silent, but awake in a way he hadn't been for centuries, because something old was returning, and it came with the human. The elders say no. The next morning, the sun rose behind dark clouds. A storm was building. But inside the council hall, something louder was already growing. Anger, fear, and doubt. Ilyana stood before the elders of the circle, the ruling voices of the Vailari. 5 tall figures sat behind a stone table carved from ancient black rock. Their robes shimmered with moving patterns, signs of power, age, and deep tradition. She had never stood this close to them before, never raised her voice in their presence, but today she had to. "I saw it with my own eyes," Ilyana said. Morak bowed. "To a human." The elders murmured. One of them leaned forward. "No guardian bows without the blood of the Vailari royal line. You know this." "I'm not lying," she said quickly. "He didn't speak. He didn't fight. He just looked at the human and bowed." Another elder shook his head. "Guardians do not recognize outsiders." "But what if this one did?" The high elder rose. His voice was deep and calm, but cold. "Ilyana, your curiosity has always been excessive. You are still young. Impressions can be tricked by fear." "I wasn't afraid," she said, louder now. "He didn't fight the human. He protected him." That made them all fall silent, until one said quietly, "Then the human must be destroyed." Ilyana gasped. "What? No." "If the creature has been corrupted," said the high elder, "we must reset it. If the human has altered its purpose, we must remove him. You don't even know him." "We don't need to. He is not one of us." Ilyana's fists clenched. She had believed in her people, in their laws, in their balance with the planet, but now they sounded afraid, like rulers trying to control a story that didn't belong to them anymore. She stepped back. "If you won't speak to him, I will. You will stay where you are," the high elder warned. But she was already gone. Back in the jungle, Callan stood near the riverbed, pulling scrap metal from his broken pod. He looked up as Ilyana ran toward him, breathless. "You need to leave," she said. He blinked. "Why?" "The elders. They think Morak is broken. They plan to reset him." "Reset?" "Control his mind again. Wipe out the bond he made with you." Callan looked at her, calm but serious. "And what about me?" "They want to erase?" "That too." He looked toward the trees, quiet, then said, "I didn't break anything." "I know," she whispered, "but you changed everything." Suddenly the ground shook. A low rumble filled the air. Birds flew from the trees again, and from the east, Morak appeared. Not just walking. Running. He stopped between Callan and the jungle wall, then turned to face the direction of the village. He let out a long, echoing roar. Ilyana's eyes widened. "He's protecting you." Seconds later, 4 Vailari guards arrived, wearing crystal armor and carrying energy spears. They froze when they saw the guardian. One raised a hand. "Morak," he called. "Stand down," Morak growled. Deep warning. The guards looked confused, nervous. Callan stepped forward, hands up. "No one's here to fight." One guard replied coldly, "You are not allowed to speak, human." "He didn't call Morak," Ilyana said. Morak came to him. "That's impossible." "Then look with your eyes," Callan said. At that moment, Morak stepped closer to Callan, lowered his massive head again, and let Callan place a hand on his neck. The creature made a low, peaceful sound, like thunder, purring. The guards backed away. The jungle held its breath. and Ileana felt something deep inside her shift, a truth stronger than rules, a truth older than tradition. Not power, not control. Trust. Later, back in the hall, the elders stood in silence. They had seen the report. They had heard the guards' voices shake. The high elder looked out over the stone balcony toward the jungle. He spoke only one line. The last time the guardian chose on his own, we rewrote history to hide it. Below in the forest, Callan and Ileana sat beside the river. She was quiet. He handed her a tool from his pouch. "What's this?" she asked. "A scanner. It reads biosigns." She smiled slightly. "Why are you giving it to me?" "Because you already scanned me without it. You saw what no one else did." She looked toward Morik, who lay peacefully nearby like a mountain of calm shadow, then back at Callan. "You didn't tame him," she whispered. "No," Callan said. "I think he remembered who he was meant to protect." The test of the Flame Caves. The Flame Caves had not been entered in over 60 years. Even most Vailari never passed the trial. It was not a test of weapons or speed. It was a test of heart, a journey through heat, darkness, and fear. Only those with true inner balance could survive. But Callan wasn't Vailari. He wasn't supposed to be tested at all. Still, after Morik's second public appearance, bowing once again in front of the entire council, there was no denying the truth anymore. Something ancient had returned. The elders, afraid to lose control, announced a decision. If the human is to stay, he must take the trial of flame. Ileana argued, "He's not built like us, he doesn't know our ways." But the High Elder only replied, "Then let the fire decide." The night before the trial, Ileana sat beside Callan near a quiet stream. They didn't speak at first, just listened to the water and the distant breath of Morak, who watched nearby like a silent guardian. "You don't have to do this," she said softly. "I know," Callan replied. "But if I leave now, your people will keep fearing what they saw. They fear losing control. They already lost it. They just don't know it yet." She handed him a pouch of root gel. "Drink this inside, it'll cool your skin." "Thanks," he said, "for staying by me." She nodded, then surprised herself by reaching for his hand. He didn't pull away. Next morning, Callan stood at the mouth of the Flame Caves, a towering crack in the side of a rocky cliff, glowing faintly red. Dozens of Vailari watched from the ridge. The council stood above all. Morik was not allowed near, but he remained just outside the forest, waiting. A guard stepped forward and handed Callan a simple torch. "No tech," the guard said. "Only instinct." "Understood," Callan replied. He stepped into the cave. The heat hit him instantly. Heavy, dry, alive. The walls pulsed with red light as if they breathed. Each turn deeper made the air thicker. The ground cracked under his feet. He moved slowly, carefully, with sweat dripping down his back and into his eyes. Deeper still, the path narrowed, and soon there were whispers. Not voices. Memories. The cave tested not only your body, but your thoughts. He saw flickers of earth, his broken ship, the moment his brother died in the last colony war, pain he had buried, regret he had ignored, all of it rose inside him. He dropped to his knees, breathed hard, pulled out Ileana's root gel and drank it in 3 gulps. It cooled him, but not enough. His chest ached, his vision blurred. Then, from the corner of his eye, light. He looked up and saw something incredible. Another guardian, not Morik, smaller, wounded, half buried under the rock, breathing slowly. Its skin cracked, its eyes dim, but alive. Barely. Callan forgot the test. Forgot. The Watchers. He rushed forward, pulled stones from the creature's body, poured water over its cracked skin, used his own shirt to clean the wounds. The cave trembled. The heat grew stronger. But Callan didn't stop. On the surface, the elders waited. 1 hour passed. 2, then 3. Many believed he had died. The trial always punished the proud. They said the flame had judged him unworthy, but Ileana refused to leave. And then, the mountain shook. A new roar echoed from inside. Not Morik, not a threat. A second guardian's voice, and from the cave's mouth, Callan emerged, burnt, exhausted, but standing, and beside him. The once-lost guardian walked slowly, scarred but alive. The crowd gasped. Even the High Elder stepped back. This is not part of the trial, one of them said. Ileana ran to Callan, tears in her eyes. He smiled weakly. I didn't pass your test, he said. I just did what felt right. You passed the real test, she whispered, and you don't even know it. Later that evening, Morik stood beside the second guardian. The two massive creatures bowed to each other, a reunion long forgotten. Ileana and Callan sat together under the sky. A quiet breeze passed between them. You risked your life for something no one even knew existed, she said. Sometimes the best things are the ones forgotten, he replied. She turned to him slowly. You didn't fight the fire. No, you healed in it. She looked into his eyes. Strong. Calm. Still human. But, more than that now. You didn't just tame our guardian, she whispered. You reminded our world how to feel again. The truth of the guardians. The next morning, the wind carried a new kind of silence. Not fear, not control, but something in between. Change. Morik and the second guardian stood like statues near the river's edge. Their large, glowing eyes followed Callan as he moved around the clearing. They didn't growl, they didn't guard. They simply watched him and waited. The Velari villagers were quiet too. Some stood far away, whispering. Others knelt in the grass, unsure if they should bow or run. No one had ever seen two guardians together in living memory, and no one had ever seen a human walk among them like a friend. Ileana stood beside Callan, holding a rolled scroll wrapped in golden cloth. She had found it deep in the Elder archives, hidden under stone behind a cracked wall. Dusty, forgotten, or maybe hidden on purpose. She had snuck it out without permission, because the truth was no longer a luxury. It was needed. She opened the scroll. Read, aloud. The guardians were not made to follow bloodlines. They were made to follow balance. The words were clear. Old Vailari script, carved with care. She looked at Callan. They were not protectors of kings. They were protectors of peace. Callan sat beside the scroll. Then why do your elders still believe the opposite? Because long ago, Ileana said slowly, one of the royal line tried to use the guardians for war. What happened? They rebelled. She turned the scroll to reveal an ancient painting. It showed three guardians bowing to a figure not in royal robes, but in simple clothes, standing beside a burning tree and helping a child to safety. A line under the picture read, "The guardians serve those who protect, not those who command." Callan leaned back. So I didn't earn their respect because I'm different. No, Ileana replied. You earned it because you didn't try to control them. That evening they returned to the council hall. This time, they were not alone. The two guardians walked beside them. The crowd parted like waves, gasps, whispers, silence. Even the High Elder stood slowly, his robe dragging the floor. What is the meaning of this? He demanded. Ileana stepped forward. She held up the scroll and spoke, not as a child, but as a voice the people could finally hear. We've forgotten the truth, she said. And because we forgot, we were afraid. The High Elder frowned. These creatures obey ancient blood. You cannot rewrite that. We're not rewriting anything, Callan said. You did. He stepped beside Ileana and unrolled the scroll for all to see. He pointed to the image of the guardians bowing. To the helper, not the king. This was always the truth. You just buried it. One of the younger council members stepped forward slowly. I've never seen this scroll before. You were never meant to, Ileana said. At that moment, Morik stepped forward. He lowered his massive body and gently placed one clawed hand on the ground between Callan and the elders. The second guardian did the same, side by side, their glow pulsing in quiet rhythm. The High Elder stepped back, staring. He said nothing, because what could he say? The people watched in silence as Callan walked to the guardians, placed his hand on Morik's head and said softly, "You were never monsters. You were never slaves. You were protectors waiting for someone to protect you back." That night, the fire in the center of the village burned brighter than usual, not because of the heat, but because of the stories being told. Not legends of kings, but truths of hearts. Hearts that chose kindness over power, and respect over fear. Ilyana sat beside, Kaelin, her head tilted to the stars. "I used to believe strength meant silence," she said, "that we must obey the old ways to honor them. And now? Now I believe the past should guide us but not trap us." He nodded. That's what the Guardians were trying to say all along. They just needed someone to listen. She looked at him, really looked, not as an outsider, not as a threat, but as someone who reminded her people who they were before they forgot. "You're not just part of our story now," she whispered. "You're the one who woke it up." The betrayal. The blood. The village felt different now. People no longer whispered when Callan walked past. Some nodded. A few even smiled. Children pointed at the Guardians from a safe distance, no longer shaking. Even the trees seemed brighter, like the forest itself had taken a deep breath after a long sleep. But not everyone welcomed change. Deep. In the stone chambers under the council hall, 5 old Vailari stood around a glowing table. They were bloodline protectors, keepers of the old laws and the old fears, and they were angry. "He shamed us in front of the people," one hissed. "He broke the trial of flame and survived. He walks with the beasts. He makes them bow. He must be silenced." The eldest among them, a scarred Vailari with white eyes, spoke slowly. "If we let this go further, the people will forget what we were. They'll forget who gave them safety." "He is not Vailari," another said. "He is human," the white-eyed elder said. "He should have died in the caves." "But he didn't. Then we fix that." They formed a plan, simple, deadly. Strike at night. Kill Callan in silence. Blame it on the wilds. Burn the scrolls. Silence the girl. Reset the Guardians before the beasts learn to protect more than one outsider. That night, Callan slept under the moonlight beside a small fire near the jungle edge. Morik lay nearby, still but awake, like a mountain watching the stars. Ilyana sat beside Callan, her legs crossed, holding a soft blue flower in her hand. "You think the people will really listen?" she asked. "They already are." "But the elders. Change always makes old power afraid." She looked at the fire. "I was born in a world of rules. You landed and broke them without even trying." He smiled gently. "I didn't come to break them. I came to survive." She tilted, her head. "But maybe that's what made you worthy." Suddenly, a sharp whistle, then a flash. A burning arrow shot from the trees aimed directly at Callan's chest. Before he could move, Morik roared. The arrow never touched Callan. It burst in midair, blocked by Morik's massive claw. 3 Vailari, in black, stepped from the trees armed with blasters and stun spears. They moved fast, silent, trained. One lunged for Ilyana, another went straight for Callan. The third circled wide to strike from behind. But they forgot one thing. There was another, Guardian now. The second beast burst from the dark like a storm. It tackled the rear attacker, slamming him into a tree. Ilyana spun, ducked, and kicked the first assassin's leg from under him. Callan fought with his bare hands, blocking, dodging, striking low, but he was outmatched. Then Ilyana screamed. Not in fear, in command, "Morak, defend him." It was the first time anyone but Callan had spoken to the Guardian. Morak turned his glowing head toward her, stared, then charged, The third attacker ran, but didn't get far. Morak roared once, and the jungle itself seemed to answer. The trees bent, the roots rose, and the traitors were swallowed by silence. When it was over, Callan stood with bruises on his arms. Ilyana was shaking, but not with fear, with anger. She marched to the council hall the next morning, Callan and the two guardians behind her. The people followed. No one stopped her. The traitors had been found unconscious in the woods. Their weapons were marked, their plans exposed. In front of the entire village, Ilyana stood tall. They tried to kill him, she said, because they feared the truth. The elders had no words, only silence. The High Elder stepped forward slowly. He was not part of the traitors, but he had done nothing to stop them. He looked at Morak, then at Ilyana, then at Callan. "What do you want?" he asked quietly. "Nothing," Ilyana said, "except that you stop standing in the way of a better world." The High Elder closed his eyes, then nodded once, and stepped down. That evening, no speeches were made, no flags were raised, only a single act. The guardians walked through the village, without being stopped, not as monsters, not as weapons, but as part of the people. And that night, as the stars returned, Ilyana sat beside Callan once again, this time no fear in her voice, only warmth. "You could have left long ago," she said. "I still could," Callan answered. "Then why stay?" He looked at her softly and replied, "Because I found a place where truth was more powerful than fear." The girl, the human, and the guardians. A full moon rose above the village of the Velari. Its pale light spread across the jungle like a silver blanket. No alarms rang, no warnings echoed. For the first time in many generations, there was peace. Morak stood on the hill beside the ancient stone tree, his head turned toward the stars. The second guardian sat below, surrounded by children who tossed fruit and flowers at its feet. And in the center of the village, two voices spoke together, not in command, not in anger, but in invitation. Callan and Ilyana, the girl who watched, the human who stayed. Together they now stood before the people, not as ruler and outsider, but as guides. Ilyana's voice rang clear. "We have spent too long guarding silence. Too long obeying rules that forgot their reason." She held up the scroll, the one she had once stolen. "But now we know the truth. The guardians are not for power. They are not for fear. They are for balance." Callan stepped forward next. He didn't speak like a leader, just like someone telling the truth. "I didn't come here to teach. I didn't come here to rule. I came because I crashed. I stayed because I was seen." He looked at Morak, who nodded once, slow and calm. "I saw someone who didn't need to be tamed, just understood." The people clapped softly. No loud cheers, just peace, and eyes no longer filled with fear. In the days that followed, changes spread. The council reformed, not just elders but farmers, scouts, even young students. Guardians were allowed to walk freely, no longer locked behind ritual or sacred stone, and a path was carved through the jungle, not leading out, but leading in. Visitors came, not many, but enough. Humans, other species, even one who had once traded illegal tech to the Vailari, now arrived offering seeds, solar tools, and books. They were welcomed carefully, but not as kings, only as friends. Callan spent his days repairing old systems, exploring the stars through his rebuilt scanner, and writing. He didn't record battles. He didn't list enemies. He wrote stories. Real. Ones of Morak, of the fire caves, of Ilyana, who once broke her people's rules to listen to her heart. And Ilyana. She became the first voice in generations to stand without a title, and still be heard, because she spoke with honesty, and never forgot how close her world had come to losing itself in silence. One morning, Callan handed her a small book. Inside, his story from crash to flame to peace. On the cover, one sentence: the girl, the human, and the guardians who chose them both. She looked at him confused. This is for me? It's yours, he smiled, so no one forgets again. Later that evening, the two guardians approached the village circle. All movement stopped. Everyone turned. Morik stepped forward, lowered his massive head, and placed a glowing crystal at Ilyana's feet. It shimmered gold. It pulsed like a heartbeat. The second guardian added its own stone beside it, smaller, but humming with deep energy. No one spoke, until Ilyana said, "They are giving us their memory." The crystals were placed in the new hall beside the scroll in Callan's book, not locked away, not sealed, but open for all. A reminder that peace comes not when monsters are controlled, but when they are understood. That night, Callan and Ilyana sat beside the fire one more time. The guardian slept in the tall grass nearby. Children laughed. Old voices sang. The jungle breathed. "Do you think they'll need us after this?" Ilyana asked. Callan looked at the stars. "I hope not." "Why?" "Because needing someone means something's broken. Trusting someone means it's healing." She smiled. "Then I trust you." He looked at her quietly. "I trust you too." They didn't speak again for a long while. They didn't have to, because in that silence something real lived. Not power, not law, but belonging. And far beyond, across other planets and stars, stories began to travel. Stories of a human who didn't fight to win, and an alien girl who didn't lead with fear. Stories of guardians who waited centuries for the right kind of voice. Not the loudest, not the strongest, just the one who listened.